Welcome to The Complete Musician, creativity at its core, exploring innovative musical ideas, thoughts, and techniques for the modern musician in today's society, with your hosts, James Nagus and Drew Phillips.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Complete Musician Podcast. I am Drew.
And I am Drew. Wait, no, I got that wrong. I'm James.
Already making mistakes.
Oh, no.
And speaking of making mistakes, today we're having a special episode on talking about the end of the semester horror that everyone has to go through, juries.
Hooray!
Now, if you don't know what a jury is, or your school calls it something different, juries are your end-of-the-year playing exam that all music students have to go through who are taking applied lessons.
And they can be scary. It's like taking a final exam, and if you don't go into your final exam having studied enough, well, then you're probably not going to do too well. So we're going to try to give you some tips and tricks about how to prepare for your jury and how to go in feeling like you're just going to go crush it.
So part of the jury is not only playing it, but it's also preparing for it, like James was saying, studying for it. But there are also other things that you have to do before you actually get to the studying part. So one of the best pieces of advice, I think, is making sure you find your pianist early.
Very early, yes, because they are crazy overworked.
At the end of the semester, not only do they probably have juries if they're students or graduate students or something, but they're probably accompanying for a whole crap ton of people. And you do not want to be last on the list of their priority music to learn, especially if you come up to them, 4 days before and say, "Oh, I'm playing the Hindemith Sonata. Can you, learn the entire thing?"
Yeah, most people won't even take on the Hindemith Sonata with months in advance.
So please find your pianist early. For us right now, James, I don't know when your students' juries are. Mine, I think, are in, from this point, they have about 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's about the same,
so
2 weeks.
At this point, definitely need to have your jury pianist already figured out, already know who they are. And if you don't, then by the time you listen to this, hopefully you do, because,
Right.
But if not, get on that. That's first priority. Okay, so find your pianist. Next, make sure you know what music you're playing.
Right. So you should probably have discussed this with your teacher. And also, your teacher probably knows pianists too, or if they're us, sometimes we're the pianist. So,
right.
Anyway, yeah, know what you're playing, and so you have enough time to actually, practice it.
Right, and know what you're going to be asked to do. Like James said, your applied teacher is probably very upfront with you about that, like we are with our students, saying, all right, you're going to play this solo piece, and you may have some scale requirements or some transposition, there may be sight reading, whatever. Make sure you know so that you are 100% prepared to do exactly what you have to do. And it's not a total shock when you walk in the room, because there is nothing that will throw you off your game more than if you walk in and teacher's like, "Oh, well, pull out your second solo piece," and you're like,
right, yeah,
time to improvise," something that, which Jeff Agrell would advocate for.
Oh, right,
right,
improvisation in juries,
yeah,
for sure.
Anyway, so those are some things you do before. Can you think of any other things to do before the jury, before you get into the actual studying part?
Make sure you sign up for a jury time.
Good point.
Because that's important. Everyone does them differently, too. Sometimes there's sign-up sheets. Sometimes it's online. Yeah. But make sure you actually do that. And then, if once you have your time and your date, and assuming you have your pianist, tell them when that is.
Yeah, coordinating that time with your pianist is really important, because if you show up and they don't, that is bad news bears, and you do not want to have that. You definitely don't want to go to a recital or something where the pianist doesn't show up. That's really embarrassing.
Right. I think if I wasn't accompanying my own students and their pianist didn't show up, I would just improvise while they're playing, and it would be terrible.
Me
It
too.
would purposely be just terrible.
What if your pianist didn't show up and you had to play whatever it was? Like, what if they were gonna play?
Oh, you mean like what actually happened in my junior jury in undergrad?
Do tell.
My pianist didn't show up because he triple booked himself.
Nuh-uh.
So I just had to play the Gordon Jacob by myself. It was weird.
I can't think of a worse situation. I'm so
It's good.
sorry.
It certainly doesn't add any anxiety to it.
Especially not that piece, and especially, well, I'm sorry for you for that, but yeah, perfect example. You don't want that to happen, so make sure you book it with your pianist, and make sure you show up at your time.
Good. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Make sure that you're wearing pants,
okay,
shoes.
well, we're getting there. We're getting
Okay.
there. Yeah, we're getting there. Okay, so the studying part. I think a lot of people don't, or part of the anxiety of juries is knowing that you know what you're going to play, but you don't always know how it's going to go. Sometimes, like you said, they're early in the morning. Sometimes they're in the afternoon. Sometimes they can even be in the evening. There's all sorts of different times that they could be, and what we want to do is always show off our best. So the key is consistency of practice and making sure that I think you're prepared to play at any time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that comes from consistent practice, like I just said, but also playing at different times of the day and making sure that you're prepared to play and can operate under any sort of conditions. Like if you know that your jury's times for your studio is going to be in the morning, then you need to make sure that you can run your program successfully to the best of your ability in the morning. Right?
Right. And so practice like you're going to perform.
Right. And that goes for any time of the day, but also thinking about the consistency of your practicing schedule. Just an idea that I provide my students with is, I think I may have said it in another thing, but making a chart and, sectioning off like chunks of pieces or maybe entire pieces and, playing it, doing big playthroughs a couple times and, assessing how successful they are. Trying to get to the highest level of, how successful you were consistently. Over time, that consistency will improve by doing big runs of things and isolating what you need to, but making sure that you can do those runs so it's not the first time in your jury doing one complete, blow through of the piece.
Right. And I'm going to add to that in terms of studying. Say you're preparing for a recital, you may have anywhere from hopefully one to maybe 3 or 4 rehearsals with your pianist. For juries, you probably have one rehearsal because it's that time of the year, everyone's so busy. So if you practice and you learn this piece and you really learn what the accompaniment is doing, so if anything were to happen, you know where you fit in, you know how everything's going to work. So it's even more important in this kind of setting to really know the piece inside and out.
A good accompanist will jump with you since they can see your part, but if they're like an accompanying student, sometimes they don't always have that experience, or if they're a younger pianist, which is no fault of their own.
Or if they're sight reading the piece, which is entirely possible.
100% have seen that and heard it and had it happen. But anyway, that not always the most comfortable situation. But yes, like you were saying, you need to know the piece inside and out so that if you need to hold it together, you need to hold it together.
Yep.
So as you're preparing, make sure you're consistent in your practice, definitely taking into account the time of day that you're practicing, not just always at the same time, because like I said, I've had it happen many times. A lot of my best practicing, personally for me, is at night. I really like playing at night. I'm glad concerts are in the evening. But a lot of the things I've had to do where, I wouldn't say pressure performance, but where there's like some kind of assessment has been in the morning, like juries, or in the afternoon.
Usually mornings, yeah.
Yeah, and because we don't want to be there all day.
Nope. And neither do you.
And neither do you. You want to play your jury and go home and eat your waffles and watch Parks and Rec. That is what you want to do, right? And that is what we want to do too. So we like to get them over in the morning too. Make sure you're preparing in that way as well, making sure your lips can operate at any time of day, being consistent in your run-throughs, and knowing your piece 100% completely through. Isolating, sure, when you need to, but also making sure that you can do it all at one time. What other suggestions?
And then when it comes down to it, sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to ask you about your suggestions. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, and then when it comes down to it, don't do anything differently on the day. Like, don't freak out and not play the day before or rest weird or not drink your coffee. Just treat it like any normal day because it really isn't that big of a deal.
Exactly. The day of is super important to not do anything random. Like, I know players sometimes who are like, oh yeah, the day before an audition, I decided that I was going to take, 3 days off before because I really wanted to be fresh. And you're like, why would you do that? That is the craziest thing I've ever heard. Why don't you just treat it like any other day?
Right, which is what you should do.
Exactly, because I think we'll get to this in a minute, but it's just another playing. You have plenty more, and you should just go in and do your best. So anyway, the day of, make sure you get there. This is another tip from us, or from me. Make sure you dress nicely.
Yes.
No jeans, no tennis shoes, a button-up shirt. I don't care if your jeans are nice. No, that doesn't matter. No jeans.
There are very few situations where overdressing is a bad thing. There are many situations where underdressing is a very bad thing.
Exactly, like a funeral. And juries. Don't do that.
Yes.
So,
right. So unless you want your jury to be your funeral.
Oh. So make sure you dress nicely. I always tell my students to dress as if they're going to a summer wedding. Isn't that romantic sounding? It's so nice.
Sleeveless shirt, like cut off jeans, sandals, Crocs. Right.
How many summer weddings have you been to? I guess if you're on the beach, then Crocs are appropriate.
0.
Oh, okay.
But that's what I imagine they would be like.
Oh, okay. Well, you need to go to more summer weddings then. On the beach, at least. That's where Crocs are definitely appropriate.
Okay.
Crocs with socks. Anyway.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, dear. Anyway, yeah. For guys, a nice khakis, and a button-up shirt. I mean, ties. I don't know.
I find they constrict my ear, so I don't like ties because I have a larger neck.
You do your neck exercises at the gym. You attach one of those things to your head and just pull back, lifting 50-pound dumbbells. Well, that's good. You'll look like a linebacker the next time.
That was my goal.
Okay, the linebacker horn player. I'm ready for it. You don't have to wear a coat either. I guess that's up to the studio and what most people do. But regardless, at least nice pants, nice button-up shirt, and ladies, what's appropriate for you guys to wear.
It's just business casual, essentially.
As if you're going to a job interview and you want to impress someone. Right? Yeah. Anyway, so in the middle of the jury, pieces of advice. Well, like we're saying, don't freak out. It's just another performance. And the biggest thing I like to remember here when it comes to my students and doing their juries is to just remember to do your best. And to always commit to playing everything. Don't be scared. Don't be nervous. Just play loud and commit to it.
Just have fun and show the committee, your passion.
It's uncomfortable for everyone in any performance to listen to someone who's I say it's apologizing for being there. You never want to go in and they're like, okay, I'm going to play really timid because, it's clearly obvious I don't want to be playing. And then people listening, it's very clearly obvious that it's awkward for us too. It's not just
It's like when you're meeting someone for the first time and they have a limp, wimpy handshake that kind of melts out of your hand. And you're like
a paper towel. Yeah.
Yes. A wet paper towel for a handshake. It's like that. You don't want to be that way in your sound.
No. So be confident. I always tell my students to play a little bit louder, just to give a little bit more confidence. Because when you step on stage or when you're recording or something, everyone thing seems to change just a little bit.
And this is just getting into basic performance tips too.
Yeah.
You know, for like recital tips, like all of these things
Right.
overlap. And sometimes, I will say, juries, sometimes they can be in recital halls, sometimes they're in classrooms. So
Yep.
it also helps to know the space. But then at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter.
No.
Just play.
Yeah. So anyway,
Just don't overthink it. Just play.
just have fun, do your best, and be confident in whatever you do. Now, I think it's really worth saying, so James and I are on the other side of this now. Like, we don't give juries anymore. We listen to them. And I think that I always want my students to know is that, like we're saying, it's just another performance. But in my opinion, yeah, there's assessment. Yeah, there's like a grade. Yeah, it figures into, you know, the final overall thing. But otherwise, it's really just a chance to showcase what you've learned for the semester. So I always tell my students it's not the biggest pressure situation. The committee listening really just wants to hear you show off how much better you've gotten since the last time we've heard you. So don't freak out about, oh, it's got to be note perfect. We know it's not going to be note perfect. First of all, your teacher knows how you play. So there's one person that's like, we know what to expect. Other people on the committee, they just want to hear you do your best. So there's no reason to think that you have to measure up to some grand expectation. This is not a job interview. It's not some crazy pressure situation where they're going to, like, you know, break your knees if you do terrible. Like, that's not the thing. It's just to show off what you've been doing and to showcase your improvement.
And to just get better, too. I mean, I have a few students who are doing juries. They don't have to, because they did recitals, but they want to just so they can get comments from the faculty.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great opportunity to get feedback.
It's true, because sometimes you don't get to play for more faculty than your applied professor. And it's great to hear other perspectives. So I totally advocate for that for people who do recitals and they don't have to do a jury because they did like a recital jury earlier in the semester. I've done that before. I've done a just for comments jury just to see what others would say.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's at least my pieces of advice for juries. And you know, juries, they have this really imposing name. Juries.
Judge Dredd, jury, judge, executioner.
Right. And it's really just playing and showing off what you can do. So in this jury time at the end of the semester, do your best. Don't be worried about what you think that your applied teacher or the other people on the committee are expecting from you. Just go in, play your best, have a good time, realize that you're always on this journey and path to getting better, and this is just one of those stepping stones that will make you better on that.
And then when you're done, you're done.
You're done, and the semester is over, and you can go relax, whether it be in the fall and that you now have your winter break, or whether it is spring and now you are in sweet summertime.
Exactly. So there's always something to look forward to.
And then after you do your jury, go relax, have a good time. Hopefully it's sunny where you are. Go and enjoy being not in a space of assessment.
And keep your chops in shape, or take a vacation and use our summer chops routine to get back in shape. A little self-plug there on our own podcast, for our podcast.
Anyway, we hope some of our tips and thoughts have helped you out. James, do you have anything left to say?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the new Taco Bell menu item they just put up.
Okay.
Oh, you mean in regards to juries?
Yeah. Well, I agree with you, but yes.
No, I have nothing to add.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for listening to this short little podcast. Hopefully it helped you out. Please listen to our other podcast. We're going to be coming out with some new content soon. A new mini-series starting up. Our other mini-series on technique was just finished, so that's been posted. Go and listen to it. Make sure you go and like us on Facebook and subscribe to us on iTunes and Facebook and on YouTube so you can see some of our silly content that we put out, because not only are we serious about music, because music is really serious, but we like to have fun too. So we put out some goofy things every once in a while.
And leave us some comments, too. We love to hear from you, even if it's just, hey, I'm listening, or just random words, you know. We love it all.
Exactly.
It just means that you're there and that you care.
We have a website at www.cormotohorn.com, so you can see what kind of activities we're both up to. And like James
download
said,
free things.
Ooh, lots of free things there. Go check out that media page. But thank you guys for listening. Drop us a comment, leave us a line, get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you.
And for those of you doing juries, have fun, play pretty.